Hey everybody, yesterday on Homeschool Family Bites, we talked a little bit about rest, and I told you how I am my own worst enemy when it comes to settling down and making time for rest. And so as we were talking and praying about what to talk about today, it kind of was an easy choice for me because David gave me the gift of an idea several years ago that I just wanted to share with you because I think that it's really gonna help you really maximize your time and actually understand where it's going. So the way that this all came about, and I'm gonna brag on him a minute before I let him tell why he came up with this idea.
I'm gonna get real uncomfortable here.
The way that this all came about is David, who is incredibly sensitive to my emotional state, my whether I am pulled in too many different directions, whether I'm trying to take on too much, when I'm frazzled, frayed, all of those things, he feels it deeply and tries to intervene. Several years ago, he came to me when I was completely overwhelmed, homeschooling 4 children, trying to minister to families as best I could through Teach Them Diligently and Teach Them Diligently 365, doing stuff at church. All of these things that I was involved in were just too much, and I don't even want to think about what I was doing that keyed him in on the fact that I needed help.
You're just being wonderful, like
I was being wonderful, so he decided I needed help. That makes lots of sense. But he came to me one Sunday afternoon between church services, and he suggested, actually suggesting is a soft term for what you said, he highly recommended, to the point of almost locking me in my room, that I actually take the time to do an inventory of all of my time through the week. So take a week and put in there everything that I do, assign it a time, actually think through and pull out every task, cooking, cleaning, teaching, writing, uploading, everything that I was doing, including, the very little things. So I had to sit there and write out all the different things that I was fitting into a week. What I found through that exercise was horrifying. I was so overbooked at that point that I had, if I just gave like the minimal amount of time humanly possible for each of the things that I had on this list, I was getting way too little sleep. There was very little time for sleep. And B,
I think it was like 3 hours or something like that.
No. It wasn't quite 3 hours of sleep, but it was 3 hours total during the week that I didn't have something specifically written down.
Yeah.
So there was zero margin for me. There was zero room for error, and I couldn't keep up with that. And it was bad for my kids. It was good for him because I was wonderful, but it had to be really bad for him. And so going through that exercise was a phenomenal eye-opener for me. So I wanted you to tell them and remind me why you came up with that idea and why you encouraged me so much to actually take the time to go through that exercise.
Well, we were budgeting and we were going through our finances and all that kind of stuff. And I was looking for free budget software and Excel spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. I'm a little distrusting of things that are online. And so I was looking for stuff. I don't know. Some of you probably think I'm being silly in that way. But regardless, I was looking for a spreadsheet that was already done. And in this spreadsheet, I wanted something that would be able to keep track of every single dollar. And so literally every single dollar, every single transaction that we had on the credit cards, on debit cards, checks, everything, it would keep track of this. And you would have to manually go in and you have to write it in. And it's a lot of work to do your budget this way. But one of the things when we did it that we found out was, man, we're blowing a lot of money on just stuff that, eating out, fast food. We just don't have time, or we just are tired, or, hey, let's go to Starbucks. And it's just a throw in here and there. And if you keep track of every single one of those, you start realizing, man, I am spending a lot of money. A lot of stuff is kind of going to waste.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I also was reading a lot of business books. I try to read a lot of business books. Goal is 2 a month, and I don't always make it, but I think I'm buying more books than a new one came in today.
I know, I saw it.
Yeah. Anyways, so I try, if it's important in business, it's important in your regular life. Yeah. And so as we were kind of talking about goals, if it's important for you to keep track of goals and to have goals for sales, it's going to be important to have goals in other areas of your life that are important as well. So that's where those two things came together. And it was, hey, let's budget our time. And I did it for myself first. And then
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did it for myself first.
I don't feel nearly so targeted now.
I did it for myself first. And when I did it for myself, I realized what you saw. It's like, man, I have no time to do anything else. It's like in the stress level that you're living under, when you're living that way, it just becomes this huge weight. Yeah. And it really weighs down on you, and you have all kinds of responses to that, right? If you,
it echoes back to, some previous discussions we've had with your attention, and you're so easily distracted because you can't focus on one thing because there's not enough time to.
That's right.
So your attention is impacted by it. Anger is definitely going to be impacted by it because when you're stretched that thin, you're going to react as one who is pretty brittle. And that's where I felt like I was pretty brittle because I was stretched too thin. So by going through this exercise and by writing down everything that I was trying to squeeze into this finite week, because there's only so much time, it really pointed out where my priorities needed to be. And together we set out to kind of trim the fat, to get rid of those things that somebody else could be doing that I didn't have to do.
Well, and one of the things that's really important to remember about this is that as we were going through the process with you, I mean, I did the same thing. So this is why I knew to kind of watch out for this. You were wanting to kind of take things out. You were wanting to kind of, and I kept having downplay things, and I kept having to, like you didn't want to add sleep at first. And it was like, no, throw sleep in there. You got to sleep. And you have to add in, and even if you don't really know how much time that you are spending on one particular task, you need to apply something to that because that's actually taking time. So you just estimate, and I bet you that we didn't actually get every single minute of the day, but it still had the same impact where you went through at the end, you're like, I don't have any time left. And we had to start, and I will be willing to bet that if the parents do this at home, that the first time they go through it, that they are going to realize they're way overbooked, meaning that there's more stuff that's on that sheet of paper than what there are weeks or hours in a week for them to be able to do. And so then they're going to have to kind of go through, and they're going to realize, man, I can't do that. Or the things that they want to try to do, there's no way that they can do that with the way their life is showing up on that sheet of paper.
Yeah. And the reason that this is so important is if you're a family on mission, which is what we talk about all the time, then your primary goal and your primary mission is to go for the heart of your children, to disciple and shepherd and point them to Jesus through while you walk, while you talk, all those teach them diligently things, those in-between moments. And when you are so distracted because you're so overbooked, you're not going to take the time to take those detours, to have those conversations. You're going to be too distracted, too brittle, too tightly wound.
I got to get on to the next thing.
To actually spend the time going for the heart of your children. And that is why you're here, Mom and Dad. So we just wanted to really encourage you to get a handle on how you're spending your time with your mission in mind. How do you free up some in order to really, really stay on mission going for the heart of your children.
And I don't want to, take too much of a detour here because it would probably be another 2 or 3 episodes. But the one thing to point out is that as you're looking at things to start taking away, here's another business book that I read, is will it make the boat go faster? And what it relates back to is the English rowing team. And they had the goal of winning the Olympics. And what they decide, that's a long-term goal, because they made the decision that they were going to try to win the Olympics, and it was like 6 years out before the next Olympics were coming around for them or something like that. And so they had to stay focused on that goal. And so they evaluated everything in their life based on, will it make the boat go faster? And they started taking everything out that would not make the boat go faster. And so you think about that. What is your goal in life? God, we've already talked about that. You go through Deuteronomy 6, and God's already given you what your goal is. And so when you start taking things out, you need to think about it in terms of what your goal is, and everything that distracts from that goal, it needs to be removed.
Yep. Somebody else can do it. It's not for this season. There's a whole lot of reasons. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. So there may be another time in your life when you're free to do these things, but it may not be right now. So I encourage you, if you're a 365 member, I did a whole episode, and I think there's a printable in 365 that walks you through this. If you're not a member, sketch out every hour and just start making a list with assigning times of how long it will take you to do those things, and just see where the math lines up for you. If you're like me, you're probably going to have to make some adjustments, but keep your mission in mind. That is where it's really, really important.
All right.
We will see you again tomorrow. Bye.
Bye-bye.